Hey guys, my name's Tomato Anus, and this is a Fallout New Vegas all sleeping partners speedrun. The goal of this category is exactly what it sounds like. You start a brand new game and sleep with every possible partner that's available in the base game of Fallout New Vegas. Similar to any percent, glitches are allowed to be used in this speedrun, but console commands are not. One thing we do to make this speedrun much easier is ensure that our deliverables are much more presentable. And that's why this video is brought to you by Manscaped. That's right, Tomato Anus is teaming up with the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-belt grooming and hygiene, Manscaped.com. Manscaped has this product called the Perfect Package 2.0, which features the Lawnmower 2.0, a waterproof manscaping trimmer with a powerful 6,000 RPM motor. That's faster than a boat propeller spins, which makes sense because these tools were created by aerospace engineers. Haven't taken care of yourself in a while and worried it might be too dangerous of an environment for the Lawnmower 2.0? Worry not, because a ceramic blade head uses skin-safe technology which prevents nicks and snags. Still not convinced? Well, just keep in mind that when you trim the hedges, the tree definitely looks taller. Go to manscaped.com today and pick yourself up a Perfect Package 2.0, which includes the Lawnmower 2.0, a safety razor titled the Plow, some anti-chafing ball deodorant, some toner and refresher, and 3 shaving mats, as well as a free travel storage bag, which would typically cost you $40 alone. If you use coupon code TOMATO at checkout, you'll get 20% off your Manscaped order, as well as free shipping. In addition to making sure that we're properly groomed, this speedrun is performed on the most recent version of Fallout New Vegas. We don't downpatch our game or anything, and we also perform the speedrun without any mods installed. In addition to this, we play on the very easy difficulty so that we take less damage and deal more damage, allowing for us to kill enemies more quickly, and we also limit our frame rate to 60 FPS, as you can see in the top right corner of my screen. I should also mention that if you want to watch this speedrun with just the game audio or with the original audio from doing this run live on Twitch, there are links in the description below. We cap our frame rate to 60 because Fallout New Vegas has very inconsistent walking speeds if you leave your frame rate uncapped, and we just want to make sure that anyone doing speedruns is competing on an even playing field. One of the first things you may have noticed already is that the game is actually being played in Italian. Italian is the fastest language for Fallout New Vegas speedruns because Doc Mitchell's dialogue is 4 seconds faster than it is in English, and it's the fastest language overall. Doc Mitchell's dialogue is the only one we care about when it comes to language differences because it's the only dialogue we can't skip in the speedrun. This run is being performed with the Mercenary Pack DLC installed, which is part of the Courier Stash add-on. The only reason for this is that we want to spawn with the Mercenary Grenade Rifle because we use it for a glitch right away in the run, and we also use it for combat later on. Getting into the actual run, we start our game as male, and we dump all of our special stats into strength because they don't actually matter right now, and we want to get through assigning our special stats as fast as possible. This whole Doc Mitchell segment just consists of mashing through all of his dialogue using both the enter button and our mouse button, and also looting some doctor's bag and stim packs to sell later on. Similar to our special stats, what skills and perks we tag don't matter right now, so we just mash A to accept as soon as they pop up. You've probably noticed by now that my screen keeps flashing to the loading screen. That's because I'm quick saving and quick loading. Quick saving and quick loading in both Fallout 3 and New Vegas is very abusable by allowing you to skip dialogues that you normally have to sit there and listen to, and also allowing for you to clip through walls. In addition to that, quick saving and quick loading resets your momentum, so if you're falling from a very great height and quick save and quick load right before you hit the ground, you won't take fall damage. Whenever you see the loading screen flash up throughout the run, it's most likely because I'm quick saving and quick loading to do any of the things that I just mentioned. Also, the reason why I couldn't just quick save and quick load through Doc Mitchell's intro dialogue is that we don't have control over our character until he finishes that, so we can't quick save and quick load just yet. I just did a couple really involved glitches in rapid succession, but don't worry, I'll explain them both in depth in a second. All you need to know is after leaving Doc Mitchell's, we went over to the schoolhouse and grabbed a bunch of mantis eggs. Upon exiting the schoolhouse, we fast traveled to Goodsprings and entered the general store to shop with Chet. From Chet, we buy at least 1 round of a special ammo type for a 357 revolver, and then sell a bunch of random items that we have in order to get a lot of caps. We also wanted to buy a 357 revolver from Chet, but he didn't have it in his shop, so we had to take it forcibly. Once we completely loot Chet's body and exit the store, we do a couple reload dashes to the left and then start doing a glitch that we call time stop. Now, we've done a lot since the time we've left Doc Mitchell's house, so let me go back and explain everything in chronological order. All you need to know is that right now in the background, I'm running towards West Side and along the way discovering Sloan, Samson Rock Crushing Plant, and the Thorn. So, right when we left Doc Mitchell's house, we did a glitch called Speed Cripple. If you're familiar with Fallout 3 speedruns, you'll know what this is already. In Fallout 3 and New Vegas, you have a base speed of 100 units. In these games, when you cripple one of your legs, you get an animation showing that your leg is crippled, and it also reduces your base movement speed by 60. Naturally, when you heal your leg, the game gives you your 60 move speed back to bring you back up to 100, and it also removes the cripple animation. If you make a quick save and then cripple your leg and quick load at the same exact time that your leg becomes crippled, the game will give you this 60 move speed back after you quick load. So that means that the game's memory values are getting messed up, and the 60 move speed is being added on top of your base 100 move speed that you have after you quick load. After you perform this glitch, you'll maintain 160 units of speed until you either cripple your legs, quit to the main menu or desktop, or rebuild your character. If you're familiar with Fallout New Vegas speedruns, you may be wondering why we do speed cripple here instead of reload dashing, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, one of the partners that we need to sleep with in the speedrun is Red Lucy of the Thorn. In order to sleep with Red Lucy, we have to complete the quest Bleed Me Dry, which consists of traveling around the Mojave and collecting eggs from a bunch of different creatures. The very first creature we have to collect eggs from are mantises. Luckily, there are a bunch of mantises that spawn in the schoolhouse right next to Doc's, and with them there are a couple egg sacs. Typically, you're supposed to go and collect each egg after she tells you to go get it, but you can give her eggs that you already have if you have at least 12 of that type. Unfortunately, when these eggs spawn, they only spawn in groups of about 2 or 3. But, luckily there is a glitch that allows for us to dupe items that we find in containers. In order to duplicate an item, it has to spawn in the container. You can't put it in there yourself. What you do then is place a large amount of one item from your inventory into the container with just the eggs. We then click to take back the stack of items we put in the container, and also press A to take all items right after. If we time it correctly, then we will have the option to pick up as many eggs from the container as the item we put in. In this speedrun, we use ammo to duplicate the eggs because we have a lot of it from the start. However, one caveat to the glitch is that the item that you deposit into the container must have weight. This means that in order to do this glitch with ammo, we have to play on hardcore. Naturally, it's faster to put the game into hardcore mode at the beginning when we get a pop-up at Doc's, rather than have to pull up the menu later on. That's why this entire speedrun is done in hardcore mode. We don't need to turn it off after we do all the duping we need throughout the run, because we finish the run well before we receive any negative effects from hardcore mode. We do this glitch 2 other times throughout the run to duplicate other items, but we'll get there in a bit. After we duped the eggs, we went to Chet's and took his .357 revolver and got a bunch of caps, and then we did a couple reload dashes, which is a glitch I'll explain in a bit. Right now, I want to explain this whole place marker thing you've been seeing over the past couple minutes. Now, in Fallout New Vegas, there are a total of 12 people or things that you can sleep with. Unfortunately, a couple of these characters will only sleep with you if you're male, and a couple will only sleep with you if you're female. As you may be aware, there's no way to change your sex in Fallout New Vegas after you've left Good Springs. There are only 2 times in the game that you can change your sex. The first is when you're initially creating your character in Doc Mitchell's house, and the second is after you leave Good Springs and you get a pop-up asking you if you want to rebuild your character. Ideally, we want to rebuild our character after we sleep with the first couple people who will only sleep with us if we're a male. If we were able to do this, we could sleep with the people who are exclusive to males, and then change our sex to female and sleep with the rest of the NPCs. Now, this raises the question of how exactly are we going to rebuild our character if we need to travel well outside of Good Springs to sleep with the first couple NPCs? The answer to this is the time stop glitch. If you press F3 to pull up the map in your Pip-Boy and mash right click while it's being pulled up, then the game will ask you to set a marker, but it'll lower your Pip-Boy in doing so. This allows you to continue to walk while still having the marker prompt up on your screen. The game still believes that you're in your Pip-Boy though, so that means that the game world is still frozen all around you. This explains the frozen Deathclaw and NPCs that I've been walking by this whole time. Now, while doing this glitch though, because the world is frozen, that means the world is also not loading. Because of that, I have to continually exit out of this glitch so that the world around me will load, and sometimes that'll cause for the rebuild character screen to pop up. When that happens, I exit out of it and quick load since I'm making quick saves every time I do the time stop glitch. Luckily, the rebuild character screen only will pop out when you're in the Mojave Wasteland, and it won't pop up when you're inside of other areas. That means that whenever we're inside, or inside places like Westside, we don't need to do the time stop glitch. Arriving in Westside, we go straight to the Casa Madrid apartments because that's where Sweetie, Jimmy, and Maud are located. Immediately upon entering the apartments, we head upstairs where we pay Jimmy 200 caps and Maud 75 caps in rapid succession, which means we all sleep together and have one of the strangest threesomes in human history. If you're unaware, these two characters will exclusively sleep with men because Jimmy is homosexual and Maud is really picky. After fulfilling our wildest fantasy, we walk down the hallway and pay Sweetie 300 caps to sleep with us. After having to load up our body with sildenafil, we fast travel back to the Thorn. We quickly enter before the rebuild character screen pops up and then make our way over to Red Lucy and get the quest Bleed Me Dry. After we accept the quest from Lucy, we have to stand there with our hands in our pockets until our 12 mantis eggs that we picked up earlier converts into a pile of giant mantis eggs. After that, we can talk to her again and turn in that stage of the quest, after which she then tasks us with finding some rad scorpion eggs. After we're done flirting with Lucy, we exit the Thorn and wait for the rebuild character screen to pop up, at which point we change our sex to female, assign our special stats, and pick our perks and skills. For our special stats, we lower our strength to 1 and perception to 4, just to have enough points to max out both endurance and charisma. We need to max out endurance to increase our survival so that we can then take travel light later on, and we max out our charisma so we can have more speech. For skills, we untag the default melee weapons and tag science, and then choose good natured for our perk. The reason we tag science is to get it to start at 30 so that we can romance a character later on, and we pick good natured to increase our speech and science even further. After we've got all that handled, we begin to do a glitch called reload dashing. You saw me do this earlier by reload dashing sideways a couple times right after we left Chet's General Store in Goodsprings. I'll explain how reload dashing works in a bit, but for now all you need to know is that we dash into an unintended play area and discover the fast travel point for Freeside. After that, we fast travel back to Goodsprings and start making our way towards the Deathclaw quarry, outside of which is where the rad scorpion eggs are located that we need to get to romance Red Lucy. After we actually get the eggs, we want to launch ourselves up in the air and dash over to some great cons who are on the outskirts of the Deathclaw quarry. We talk with them briefly and let them know we'll find their package that never arrived. From there, we fast travel to Sloan, look inside a suitcase inside, and speak with Chomps Lewis, who lets us know that we need to find Tyrone. We'll then fast travel down to Goodsprings and begin reload dashing down to Prim, which is where Tyrone is located. Along the way, we'll level up survival to 45 and speech to 50. We want speech at 50 because that's required to pass a speech check later on. We want survival at 45 so we can take travel light later on. When we level up, we'll be taking Black Widow as our perk so that we can sleep with Tyrone when we arrive in his tent. Now that I'm a bit ahead on commentary, I'll briefly explain reload dashing. Reload dashing is for sure the most efficient way to traverse the wasteland in Fallout New Vegas. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it while doing time stop because we need to be entering our Pip-Boy non-stop, and there's no way to do time stop and reload dash easily, so we wouldn't be able to delay the character rebuild menu. As I mentioned earlier, the character rebuild menu removes speed cripple, which is actually good for us because you can't reload dash and have speed cripple at the same time unless you reload dash to the side, which is really inefficient in the long haul. Reload dashing works by continually holding W while swapping ammo with a gun that has a 1 bullet at a time reload animation. This animation is bugged in a way that kind of launches you forward just by a little bit when you finish the animation. If you cancel the animation and unequip the gun after doing so, all while still holding W, when you lower the Pip-Boy, you get slingshotted forward by a sizable amount. There are a couple other nuances with reload dashing that I need to explain, but I'm beginning to fall behind on the route again, so let's jump back to that and put a pin in reload dashing. Upon sleeping with the surprisingly white Tyrone, we leave his tent and fast travel back to the Thorn. Here, we speak with Red Lucy and try and flirt with her some more, only to learn that the Rad Scorpion eggs aren't enough and now she wants Fire Gecko eggs. After seemingly coming to an agreement that Fire Gecko eggs are a fair trade for fish tacos, we leave the Thorn and fast travel to Freeside. When we arrive in Freeside, we'll quickly head over to Mick and Ralph's where we'll speak with Ralph real quick and buy a counterfeit passport. After we buy the passport, we're going to head upstairs and do that item duping glitch again, but this time we're going to do it on Vault 3 jumpsuits. We're going to need 30 jumpsuits, and because we don't have 30 of one type of ammo, we're going to have to do the duping glitch with 2 different dressers that both spawn with Vault 3 jumpsuits. The reason why we need these jumpsuits is that later we're going to romance Sarah Weintraub. We need to give her at least 30 jumpsuits in order to sleep with her. Now that I'm ahead again, let's go back to reload dashing really quickly. The main thing about reload dashing is that you have to be in a walking animation to perform it. This means that typically you can only reload dash while you're on solid ground. This kind of sucks for speedrunners because when you reload dash you tend to move at very high velocities, which means if you bump into a slightly ramped object, you get shot up into the air. We can actually use this to our advantage though, as you've seen me do a couple times throughout this run. When you get launched into the air, if you stop holding any directional inputs, then you'll eventually hit a ceiling and stop flying up. But you actually won't fall down either after you hit this ceiling. In fact, you'll be floating in midair on what seems to be a platform even though there's actually nothing there. When you're floating like this, the game actually thinks you're on the ground, so you're free to wait or fast travel or even reload dash if you time it correctly. Back to the actual run, after leaving Mick and Ralph's, we proceeded to reload dash over to the north side gate area. Here, we went over to the Atomic Wrangler because we want to speak with James Garrett inside and let him know that we'll look for some proclivities for him. After speaking with James, we then reload dash over to the actual north gate and use our fake passport to get in. Once inside the strip, we're quickly going to reload dash through the first 2 areas and enter the Vault 21 gift shop. Here, we'll speak with Sarah Weintraub and hand over all those vault suits that we borrowed from Mick and Ralph. After that, we'll head downstairs and spend the night in a twin bed with our favorite thotty. While this whole thing goes on, there's one other piece of movement tech that I haven't really gotten the chance to explain yet, which is called stop hopping. This is a glitch that you may have seen me perform in previous runs, and you'll see me do a couple times throughout this run. Stop hopping looks a lot like bunny hopping, but I can assure you it's very different. Stop hopping is performed by holding W, jumping, and then flicking your camera to the side and back forward to build up momentum, and then right before you land you let go of W, jump again, and begin holding W again, flick your camera again, let go, jump, and just repeat that process over and over. If you time it correctly, you can chain multiple stop hops together and travel at about the same speed as Speed Cripple. Before you ask, stop hopping doesn't stack with Speed Cripple, so that's why I wasn't doing it earlier. Stop hopping is a great tool though to use throughout the run in areas where reload dash just doesn't make sense or you don't have your weapon on you. After sleeping with Sarah Bear, we're going to clip out of bounds and fall into the void. When you do this in Fallout games and you fall far enough, you respawn at what's called a center on cell location, COC for short. This is a predetermined location that is set for every interior cell in the game. It's just in place so that if you somehow fall out of bounds while playing casually, you don't fall for all eternity, and you are at least relocated to somewhere in the area. Typically, COC locations are right near the entrance of the area, which is perfect for right now since we can clip out of bounds twice in rapid succession and exit out to the strip pretty quickly. After leaving Vault 21, we run into our old pal Victor before we head over into the next area of the strip and enter the tops. Once we're in the tops, we hand over our weapons and then walk forward far enough to hit a trigger that gives us a bunch of XP. We then quick save and quick load, which will allow for us to level up after we speak to Swank and convince him that we should probably try and get Benny arrested. After talking to Swank, we level up our science to exactly 60 and take the Travel Light perk, which increases our move speed by 10% when we wear light or no armor. We then speak with Benny and use Black Widow dialogue choices to remind him that we're a courier and know how to handle a package. We were given back our weapons after we talked with Swank a moment ago, so we're able to then reload dash back to the elevator, which we take up to Benny's floor. Once we load in on his floor, we're going to walk backwards and left and clip out of bounds, which will COC us exactly in the middle of Benny's room. We then wait 1 hour to skip Benny's walk up to the room, and also the time that he does his final manscaping preparations for the night. We then talk with Benny and decide it's best to strip search him after finding a suspicious bulge on his body. When we're finished with Matthew Perry, we exit his room and reload dash down to the elevator. Once back in the lobby, we enter the courtyard of the Tops, which is actually in the same interior cell as the courtyard of the Gomorrah. If we clip out of bounds in the Tops courtyard, we can reload dash in this out of bounds area over to the courtyard of the Gomorrah, where there are 2 females who we can converse with and exchange caps for lustful acts. Once we clip into the courtyard area, we speak with Joanna, with whom we agree to exchange currency for sleepy time. Joanna begins to walk to her bachelorette pad, which gives us time to go over and talk with Dazzle. When we speak with Dazzle, we use the Black Widow perk to haggle her down to 50 caps for a quickie. During the fade to black, we're able to reload dash towards Joanna's room and actually get launched up into the air a little bit, so we're able to just drop down into the hallway right outside of her door. Similar to with Benny, we have to wait 1 hour for Joanna to finish her walk up to the room and also brush her cat before we slam clams. Once in her room, we speak with Joanna and proceed to lay on her bed and then watch her change from a very revealing outfit into a less revealing outfit before the screen fades to black. After enjoying the moment, we leave Joanna's room and proceed to exit the Gomorrah by reload dashing through the back room and the lobby. Once near the front, we tell the bouncer to mind his own business, and we're unjustifiably kicked out of the Gomorrah. Once outside, we fast travel back to Freeside and choose to stop getting sidetracked from finding proclivities for James Garrett. When we actually enter Freeside, we walk to the right a little bit to get the perfect angle to reload dash into this decrepit building on the left, and if you hit it at just the right spot, you kind of bounce around on the walls on the inside just right so that you appear out on the other end right by Santiago. We speak with Santiago and tell him to head over to the Atomic Wrangler and begin making our way to the Old Mormon Fort. Now, in place of Santiago, we could actually send Old Ben to the Atomic Wrangler instead. The problem with this is that we can't sleep with Old Ben at the Atomic Wrangler, whereas we can sleep with Santiago. That means that in order to sleep with all possible people in the run, we have to send Santiago to the Wrangler instead. At the fort, we speak with Beatrix and let her know that James Garrett is looking to hire an escort with her type of capabilities. After sending Beatrix on her merry way, we exit the fort and begin reload dashing towards Cerulean Robotics. Coming up is the sleeping partner who is the reason why we needed to get our science up to 60. Once we actually enter Cerulean Robotics, we're going to equip our grenade launcher, and we're going to be making quick saves pretty often because there's a lot of rats inside here and they get pretty obnoxious. In one of the first rooms, we need to pick up a key on the ground that's under a body that's also surrounded by rats. We can't just fire our grenade launcher into the room though to clear out the rats because that'll send the key flying and we won't be able to find it. After we get the key, we enter the next room and run around the desks in order to kind of lure the rats into a good position and then just blast them away. We use the key to open a tool cabinet to grab the terminal access card, which will allow for us to access the computer, where we will pass our science check and activate the dubiously named Fisto. After we activate Fisto, we wait 1 hour to skip his walking animation, and also to give him enough time to polish his knobs. We then have a brief dialogue with Fisto and decide to give him a spin. After spending our night with a toaster, we exit Cerulean Robotics and fast travel back to the North Gate. Here we proceed to reload dash back north towards the Atomic Wrangler, where we have a couple friends waiting for us. After entering the Wrangler, we'll speak with Francine real quick and purchase a room for just 10 caps. We then have to wait until after 1 PM for James to start his shift behind the counter. Once James arrives for work, we let him know that we found a smooth talker for him, who is Santiago, and a ghoul for him, who is Beatrix.
Ho sentito che Benny...
After this brief discussion, we can then head over to Santiago, who has some new fresh digs, and hire him for the night.
Come stai oggi?
Wasting no time, after talking with Santiago, we head over to Beatrix, who's taken a seat at the counter by James. She too will be joining us in our room for the night. We decide to give Santiago and Beatrix a courtesy hour to get to know each other better before we head up to the room ourselves. By the time we finally make it up to the room, Santiago and Beatrix are both passed out. Luckily, all we have to do is interact with them in order to wake them up and have a little fun ourselves. After listening to what I heard coming from my parents' room growing up, we figure it's time to finally get some more creature eggs for Red Lucy. Upon exiting the Wrangler, we fast travel down to Prim and start reload dashing towards a cave. But it's not a cave for fire gecko eggs. It turns out that there's actually a cave between Prim and the fire gecko cave that houses eggs for night stalkers. If you aren't familiar with the Bleed Me Dry quest that we do for Red Lucy, after we get fire gecko eggs, we then have to go and collect some night stalker eggs for her. Similar to the giant mantis eggs though, we're going to need to have at least a dozen of them to convert it into an egg pile to give to Red Lucy, because we're not going to be going out and getting the night stalker eggs when we actually have the active quest to go and collect them. This means that when we go and get the night stalker eggs, we have to do the item duping glitch one last time. The cave where we go and get the Night Stalker eggs from in the speedrun is Walking Box Cavern. Luckily, the interior of this cave isn't too complex or too windy, so it usually just takes one reload dash to get near the end of the cave where the eggs are located. The one thing that we have to be careful of in both the Night Stalker cave and throughout the rest of the speedrun when collecting these creature eggs is to make sure that we don't get our legs crippled at all. We don't really have any stim packs left, so if our legs got crippled, we wouldn't be able to heal them at all, which is a huge issue. The reason why this is problematic to the speedrun is, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a speed cripple, you can't really reload dash too well, but that's not just a trait of speed cripple, that's a trait of having a crippled leg. So if one of our legs gets broken by one of these creatures, then we won't be able to reload dash for the rest of the run. This adds a lot of tension to the end of the run, as you can see reflected by my heart rate at the bottom of the screen. I neglected to mention earlier that that heart with the number next to it is my heart rate live during the speedrun, and it was actually kind of elevated a lot during this run. Typically when I'm doing runs live on Twitch, my heart rate rests between 65 to 75 beats per minute. For some reason though, this run just felt really good from the get-go, and I was kind of on edge during the full thing, not wanting to mess it up. I think an added factor to this was the fact that it was the second attempt of the day, and the idea of getting a solid run like this one that early on in a stream really elevates the situation. But I digress. After leaving Walking Box Cavern, we reload dashed over to Bootjack Cavern, which is where the fire gecko eggs are located. This cave is a bit more windy and complex than Walking Box Cavern, so we can't just reach the eggs at the end with one reload dash. We make it back to the entrance of the cave very easily though by clipping out of bounds and COCing to the entrance. Once out of the cavern, we want to create as much distance between us and the geckos as possible so that we can safely fast travel back to the thorn. One easy solution to this is to launch ourselves in the air and then stop pressing any directional buttons as I mentioned earlier, and then fast travel once we land on that floating platform that appears when you hit the ceiling. Unfortunately, the Thorn has strict labor practices and does not open until 6 AM. You can bet your bottom though that we'll be the very first in line once they open their doors for business in the morning. Once inside, we go up and talk to Red Lucy and give her the fire gecko eggs, and then we have to wait again, just like we did earlier with the mantis eggs, for the night stalker eggs to convert themselves into a giant pile. Upon talking with Red Lucy, we learn that giant mantis eggs, rad scorpion eggs, fire gecko eggs, and Night Stalker eggs just aren't enough, and we need to provide her with some Cazador eggs as well. Luckily, we know just where to find them. Upon exiting the Thorn, we immediately fast travel to the Samson rock crushing plant. Upon arrival, we're going to start reload dashing to the northwest towards Red Rock Canyon. There's actually a pathway in the back of Red Rock Canyon that connects it to Jamestown that you aren't actually supposed to be able to access from Red Rock Canyon because the slope is so steep. This pathway connecting Red Rock Canyon to Jamestown is actually where the Cazador eggs are located. Luckily, we can use reload dashing and the fact that we can get launched up in the air and dash to our advantage here. Once we reach the back of Red Rock Canyon, our goal is to reload dash ourselves off of a rock or a tent or some sort of slope in order to shoot ourselves up high enough that allows for us to reload dash over the steep slope that blocks us from the pathway to the Cazador eggs. After making it up the slope, we have to be careful not to launch ourselves too high because we might pass an invisible wall that will lock us behind it and keep us stuck in rocks, pretty much ending the run. This is why my heart rate is so high during this segment, because 1, the launch up to skip that steep slope is pretty difficult, and 2 is a couple days before this run, I lost another incredibly paced speed run to this section because I got launched up too high and got stuck in some rocks behind an invisible wall and got soft locked and couldn't finish the run. When walking up to the eggs and grabbing them, you have to be very careful not to get stung by any of the Cazadors, which is why I'm using time stops so much here. If you get stung by them, you're going to be under the effects of their venom for a good long while, and you actually can't fast travel away when you're under the effects of their venom. The tactic here for fast traveling away from the Cazadors though is the same as with the geckos. Try and launch yourself up in the air to create more distance between you and them, and then fast travel away, which we were actually able to do very smoothly in this run. Once we arrive back at the Thorn, Red Lucy lets us know that there's just one more creature egg we need to provide in order to share a banana-less split with her. The creature that we need to get the last egg from is a Deathclaw, and it's kind of ironic because Deathclaws, while being the most intimidating and formidable foe in the Wasteland, is probably one of the easiest eggs to get, probably only behind the Mantis egg. To get the egg, we fast traveled to the Great Khan encampment, which is where we talked with Melissa earlier to get the quest that allowed for us to sleep with surprisingly white Tyrone. At the encampment, we just had to do one reload dash forward and then a time stop to easily claim a Deathclaw egg for ourselves, followed by just dashing around, trying to get a good launch that will allow for us to fast travel back to the Thorn without needing to go too far away from the quarry. Finally back at the Thorn, we can turn in the Deathclaw eggs and finish the Bleed Me Dry quest line, at the end of which we can request with Lucy to meet with us somewhere more private. Once in Red Lucy's chambers, we can hardly wait to interact with her. All we need to do is push her closer to her bed and wait for her to change into her nightgown, at which point we will interact with the bed, ending the speedrun with a final time of 28 minutes and 38 seconds. This run was a really fun run to do. There's a lot of variety to it, and it didn't really get stale at all when I was grinding out runs. There's such a variety of glitches and just fun little quirks of the run and the route and the characters in the game that really, you could just talk about it non-stop. In fact, as I record this, I realize now that I didn't explain the load remover in this run, so that means that we're bound to get a good handful of comments complaining about why my timer was stopping during load screens. But hey, I'm not about to argue in YouTube comments over that. Instead, I'm going to prepare myself for a night out on the town with the tools provided in the Manscaped Perfect Package 2.0. Again, use discount code TOMATO at checkout to get 20% off your order and free shipping. But yeah, that's about it. This has been a Fallout New Vegas All Sleeping Partners speedrun. I'm Tomato Anus, and I hope you have an above average day.